Jacket on, jacket on.
Can we just film the transport?
Can we take our clothes off?
Let's wait for this picture. You just want to show up. What you're saying.
Oh, officials, police officer.
You just want to show up.
We all have to show them a tougher than Putin.
The bare chest horseback ride displayed.
Oh, yes.
Take off. Got to show our pecs.
Good morning from Athens, Greece. It is 8:20 here on this Monday morning, and you just saw the video clip of the G7 leaders sitting at a round table in Germany mocking Russian President Vladimir Putin. Boris Johnson kicked things off by commenting on the heat in the room. Supposedly this room was very hot, and Boris Johnson said in reference to some of the photos that were about to be taken, whether the leaders should keep their jackets on or their jackets off. And then, of course, Boris Johnson, being the clown that he is, the court jester that he is, said, "Shall we take off our clothes?" And everyone had a chuckle. And then, of course, Trudeau, wanting to be the cool guy in the room, suggested that they keep their jackets on long enough to take pictures. And then Johnson said, "Well, we have to show that we're tougher than Putin." And then Trudeau shot back, "We're going to get the bare-chested horseback riding display." And then Johnson came back and said, "We've got to show them our pecs." And then, of course, Ursula Crazy jumped in and said, "Horseback riding is the best." Biden was kind of quiet throughout this whole exchange, as the other leaders, of which 3 of them are unelected. The other leaders at that table, the 3 unelected ones, were kind of chuckling. Macron was kind of chuckling. The 3 unelected leaders are Crazy, Charles Michel, and, of course, Mario Draghi, the unelected leader of Italy. And so they were laughing and they were having a good time. Biden kind of quiet, probably clueless about what's going on at the table. But yeah, so Trudeau. Let's start with Trudeau. Trudeau was making fun of Putin's horseback riding pictures, those famous pictures where Putin is shirtless on the horse. And I just think to myself, really, Trudeau? You really want to make fun of someone else's photos from the past? You really want to go there, Justin? How many photos are there of Justin wearing inappropriate, racist costumes? How many photos are there? 3, 4? So that's Trudeau showing zero self-awareness, absolutely zero. And everyone in Canada knows exactly what I mean. Everyone around the world knows exactly what I mean when I talk about Trudeau's past racist photos. Not one instance, not 2 instances, but I believe 3 or 4 instances of Trudeau's racist pictures that are all over the internet. So for Trudeau to actually mock Putin for riding a horse without his shirts, well, I find that kind of interesting there. And of course you have Bojo the clown egging everyone on and talking about how we have to show our pecs and show that we're tougher than the Russians, than Putin. And I just think to myself, my God, Boris Johnson, Vladimir Putin, he completely owns you. I mean, he owns the British Prime Minister. It is incredible how obsessed Boris Johnson has become with Putin and Ukraine. Does Boris even care about the UK anymore? Does he do anything with regards to running the United Kingdom? Does he even care? Is he even in the UK anymore? It seems like he's either in Kiev or he's running around on a plane all over the world, kind of trying to avoid spending time in 10 Downing Street. I mean, Boris Johnson is like he's forgotten about running the UK at this moment in time. He just doesn't care anymore. He's completely obsessed with Ukraine, with Russia, and I wonder how his nose operation went after his last visit to Kiev and his time spent with Zelensky. What was Boris doing with Zelensky that he needed a surgery on his nose? What could he possibly have been doing with Zelensky that he needed a surgery on his nose? Oh my God. And then you have Ursula von der Crazy, who, as the cool kids, as the cool boys were mocking Putin, Trudeau and Johnson, as they were palling around mocking Putin, you have Ursula von der Crazy jumping in and say, horse riding is the best. These are our leaders. These are the leaders of the collective West. These are the people that the citizens of the collective West actually believe are going to be able to take on Russia and China and India and Iran and Turkey. These people, this group of clowns. I mean, the only thing that you needed at this meeting, I think the only thing that was missing from this table was a strong man, a bearded lady, and a man that's a half horse, half man. And I think the circus would have been complete. Maybe a couple of acrobats or something, a high wire show up top, and the circus would have been complete. I mean, what a clown show this was. And I can't believe that these are the people that we're pinning our futures on. And Biden was clueless. He said nothing, and I don't even think he knew what the hell was going on. The guy was just, in zombie mode throughout this whole exchange. And anyway, so that was the mocking of Putin at this G7 meeting. For his part, Vladimir Putin actually did comment on the G7 meeting, and Putin said this with regards to the G7. I want to stress once more, the sharp increase in inflation didn't happen yesterday. It was a result of several years. It was a result of many years of irresponsible macroeconomic policies of the countries from the Group of Seven, uncontrolled emission and accumulation of unsecured debts. So that was the comment that Putin made with regards to the G7 meeting that was taking place in Germany. They did make one big decision at this G7 meeting, and that actually made two decisions, to be quite honest. Two big decisions at this G7 meeting. And the real big decision was, of course, the banning of Russian gold, for which Joe Biden tweeted, the United States has imposed unprecedented costs on Putin to deny him the revenue he needs to fund his war against Ukraine. Together, the G7 will announce that we will ban the import of Russian gold, a major export that rakes in tens of billions of dollars for Russia. And Anthony Blinken, the equally as dumb Secretary of State, came out with a statement and said that this move to ban Russian gold is going to cost Vladimir Putin $19 billion a year in revenues that he uses to fund his war machine. And I guess that Putin can just subtract the $19 billion from the 30-40 billion windfall in revenue that Russia is making per month from the sale of energy around the world. Yeah, the 19 billion a year is not going to hurt Russia at all. But those were the statements from Blinken. So look, this decision at this meeting to ban Russian gold is nothing more than a show. That's all it is. It doesn't really do anything, and it doesn't really mean anything because the trading of Russian gold was already at zero levels with the West when the sanctions were first introduced. And let me read you some analysis from Zero Hedge, which makes that point. While Western sanctions to punish Russia have largely closed European and US markets to gold from the world's second biggest bullion miner, the G7 pledge would mark a total severance between Russia and the world's top two trading centers, London and New York, largely a purely symbolic escalation. Quote, what this does is formalize what the gold industry has already done anyway, said Adrian Ash, head of research at brokerage Bullion Vault. So, trade between Russia and the West with regards to gold and London, New York has already been cut off and is already at pretty much zero levels. So this does absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, this is going to probably push up the price of gold and benefit Russia while hurting the West, which pretty much falls in line with every single sanction policy these clowns at that table have come up with. Let me read you some more from Zero Hedge. The biggest buyers of gold in recent years have not been G7 countries, the United States, France, Canada, Germany, Japan, the UK, and Italy, many of whom naively sold much, if not all, their gold in the recent past and have refused or simply don't have the funds to restock. Instead, purchases have all been by developing nations' central banks like India and Turkey and of course China, which however has a habit of only revealing its true gold inventory every decade or so, who have been quietly preparing to do what Russia is doing by de-dollarizing and instead allocating capital into a counterparty-free asset. As for Russia, its central bank has been an aggressive buyer of gold, not seller. And if anything, Biden's decision will only make the gold market the latest to follow the example of oil and bifurcate, cheaper for Russian friends and much more expensive for Russian enemies. As for the price of gold, what happens when the second biggest gold mining nation in the world and a major source of supply is cut off from the Western world, even if it is still allowed to transact freely with the rest of the world, which accounts for roughly 80% of the population and will most likely simply boost sales to China and the Middle East, both of whom will be happy to continue purchasing Russian gold. We'll find out in a few hours. The price is going to go up. The price is going to go up. That's what's going to happen. That would be my guess. And I think that's what Zero Hedge, the analysis is also implying. What happens when you stop trading with the second biggest gold mining nation in the world and a major source of supply is cut off from Western markets? And that supplier, this second biggest supplier of gold mining, is going to trade freely with India and Turkey and China. What is going to happen in the Middle East? What exactly is going to happen with this gold ban? So it looks like the G7 crowd has not learned from the sanctions that they placed on Russia. The six rounds of sanction that they've placed on Russia, they haven't learned one single thing from those sanctions. And they are going to continue the insanity now by trying to ban Russia from gold. It's going to end in exactly the same way that energy and gas and oil and fertilizer and food and all those things have ended. Russia's going to be winning, and the collective West is going to lose. So another decision that was made at this G7 meeting is that the G7 are committed indefinitely now to Ukraine. And for this, we have to thank Ursula von der Crazy, who decided to sign up all of the countries in attendance to support Ukraine until the very, very, very end, indefinitely. And Boris Johnson and Joe Biden, of course, were talking about how Ukraine fatigue is setting in the collective West, but that they should not stop their efforts in aiding and supporting the Zelensky regime. Now is not the time to give up on Ukraine. They need the support and resolve of the G7 more than ever, Johnson said on Twitter. The UK will continue to back Ukraine every step of the way because we know that their security is our security and their freedom is our freedom. How exactly is Ukraine's security the security of the UK, and how exactly is Ukraine's freedom the freedom of the UK? Has this been a rule that has been around for forever? Is this like one of these golden rules like gravity, or I don't know, the sky is blue? I mean, when exactly was the UK's freedom and security pegged to Ukraine? Can someone in the UK answer that question for me? When was this law, this dictate, when was this put in place? Because this is a new one to me. And then Ursula von der Leyen pledged indefinite G7 and European support for Ukraine. Quote, "We will stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. The negative global impact of Russia's war will be front and center of our exchange at the G7." And then the G7 issued a statement expressly stating perpetual support for Ukraine amid the ongoing Russian invasion. And this is according to a draft text seen by Bloomberg. Quote, "We will continue to provide financial, humanitarian, military, and diplomatic support and stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. As we do so, we commit to demonstrate global responsibility and solidarity through working to address the international impacts of Russia's aggression, especially on the most vulnerable." Can't forget about the most vulnerable. They always have to throw that in there, that virtue signaling, the most vulnerable. Bloomberg says that this is among one of at least 4 statements that the G7 leaders plan to publish alongside their traditional communique. And according to Bloomberg, Ukraine's President Zelensky will be giving a virtual address to the summit, wherein it's expected he'll press the Western countries to supply heavier weapons and in greater quantities. Of course he will. Of course he will. Biden also made a statement where he thanked Olaf Scholz, where he said, "We have to stay together because Putin has been counting on from the beginning that somehow NATO and the G7 would splinter, but we haven't, and we're not going to." So the whole meeting, to sum it up, was just basically Boris Johnson acting like a clown, Trudeau showing a complete lack of self-awareness and just wanting to impress Boris Johnson and trying to act cool, Ursula von der Crazy just being crazy and committing the entire group to an indefinite support of Ukraine, and Biden talking about how everyone needs to stick together and that Putin's master plan was about dividing up the G7, but he has failed because the G7 is sticking together. And that was pretty much the entire meeting summed up. Nothing about how to tackle inflation, nothing about how to deal with food shortages or rising fuel costs, or any of these things, supply chain issues, none of that. All of it was, we blame Russia, we blame Putin. And Putin knew this. Putin knew that they were going to blame him. That's why he issued the statement that he issued that I read earlier in the video, saying that, look, this is not my fault. This is the fault of endless money printing and irresponsible fiscal policy that the G7 has been conducting over the past 2 to 3 years, and before that as well. So that was the G7 meeting. Let me see if I have anything else to highlight from this clown show of a meeting, and then we'll get into the ban, the default, not the ban, the default of Russia. Oh yeah, there is one more story to talk about with regards to the G7, and that is a meeting that took place on the sidelines, where Johnson warned Macron not to attempt a Ukraine settlement. According to Politico, attempting to settle the conflict in Ukraine would only cause enduring instability, Boris Johnson warned Emmanuel Macron on Sunday. Speaking at the G7 summit of world leaders in Germany, the UK Prime Minister told the French president that such a move would give Putin a license to manipulate both sovereign countries and international markets in perpetuity, according to a Downing Street readout of the pair's encounter. Now, I've heard that the French readout is denying this statement, this warning from Johnson to Macron, but Downing Street is they're saying it. They're saying that Boris Johnson actually told Macron not to search for a settlement in Ukraine. This is the second documented time that we have Boris Johnson actively working to prevent any type of diplomatic effort to solve the conflict in Ukraine. And once again, a strange statement coming out of Boris Johnson, where he says that searching for peace, trying to find peace in Ukraine, some sort of ceasefire, would give Putin a license to manipulate sovereign countries and international markets in perpetuity. I wonder if Boris Johnson could explain that line of thinking. How does a ceasefire, working for a diplomatic ceasefire in Ukraine, cause international markets to be manipulated by Putin? In perpetuity, by the way, in perpetuity. How exactly does that happen? I don't know. So let's now move on to the Russian default. Western mainstream media is celebrating Russia's default. And Bloomberg is calling it a grim marker in the country's rapid transformation into economic, financial, and political outcast. BBC is calling it a major blow to the nation's prestige. And the Wall Street Journal even invoked a specter of the Bolshevik Revolution when Vladimir Lenin, the newly installed communist leader, repudiated the debt of the Russian Empire. So did Russia default? Well, no, they didn't default. This has been an engineered default, engineered by the Biden White House. And I talked about this last month, that the Biden White House was going to close the sanction loophole that they kept open, which allowed debt holders, bond holders, to be paid by Russia. So the Biden White House actually kept this loophole in place in order for debt holders to be paid. And last month, they decided that they would close off this loophole in order to engineer a Russian default. And last month, what the Russians did is that they actually paid off the debt holders before Biden passed the order to close off this loophole. So this loophole was going to be closed off on, Biden put the order for the loophole to be closed on the 25th and 26th of each month. And what the Russians did is they made the payment in anticipation of this they made the payment in May on like the 23rd, 24th, so that they could avoid the default for 1 month. But in June, as was expected, the default was triggered, I guess you could say. The default was triggered. So the bondholders have not declared a default, and they haven't started any proceedings towards Russia, which would be very, very tricky, and most likely you're going to see proceedings being initiated, legal proceedings being initiated towards the Biden White House. But this default is really symbolic, to be quite honest. It's not a real default. And the Russians, for their part, what they have said is that, you know what, since you're not allowing us to make payments to debt holders, since you're closing that off, what we will do is we will make the payments in a type of reverse gas for rubles scheme. In other words, we'll deposit the money in rubles in an account at Gazprom Bank, and then the debt holders can come in, they can exchange those rubles, remove the foreign currency of their choice that they want to exchange those rubles for, and everything is paid up and done. And so the Russian ministry has announced that it did settle 2 issues of dollar-denominated euro bonds maturing in 2027 and 2024 in full by sending 12.51 billion rubles, or $234 million, in coupon payments to the National Settlement Depository under the new Russian mechanism. Investors will now need to open a ruble account to receive the funds and deal with any Western sanctions that might prevent them from moving the money out of Russia by themselves, the ministry explained. Thus, obligations, and this is a quote from the ministry, thus obligations on servicing the state securities of the Russian Federation were fulfilled by the finance ministry in full. So Russia has the money. They're swimming in money. They have the money to easily pay the debt holders. The Biden White House decided that they were going to close this loophole in the sanctions that they kept open. And the Biden White House knows now that there will be legal action taken, not against Russia, but legal action will be taken against the Biden White House. They understand this, but they decided to go ahead with the closing of this loophole either way. And the Russians, for their part, are saying, you know what, you guys can scream default all you want. This is symbolic, and it is symbolic. And we're going to make the payments in rubles in a type of reverse gas for rubles scheme. And so the rubles are going to be sitting in a bank account in Russia, waiting for the bondholders to come in to exchange those rubles and to take out their foreign currencies when they want. It's there waiting for them, and then they can deal with whatever sanctions, legal stuff they have to deal with in regards to taking out money, foreign reserves from a Russian bank. They can deal with that on their own. According to the Russian finance ministry, they've made good on their debt obligations. And so you're going to have a lot of the collective West financial architecture, the Moody's, the Standard & Poor's, they're going to start saying that Russia is in default, and I'm sure the IMF and all of these institutions are also going to start talking about Russia's default. But who cares? Who cares? Because Russia is out of the financial architecture of the collective West anyway. And all this is going to do, at the end of the day, all this is going to do is this is going to hurt the dollar more, and it's going to destroy whatever trust is left in the Western financial system. That's all this is going to do. So in a matter of one day, the Biden White House and the G7 leaders in the collective West, they have managed to de-dollarize even more by taking the action that they took with regards to gold. This Russian default is going to hurt the dollar and hurt Western financial architecture even more. And they've signed up to support Ukraine indefinitely. That is the hill that the collective West is willing to die on. That's the hill. That's going to be their last stand, is Ukraine. And that's exactly what's going to happen. The G7 countries are going to implode on this this hill that they're willing to fight Russia on, which is called Ukraine. And so, saying that, this is a good place to do a clown world, because one of the things that that Russia is doing to the collective West is they are demilitarizing the collective West. And we've had Bulgaria and Greece and Germany and Poland and the stockpiles of US weapons. All these countries have been demilitarized. They've given up all their Soviet era weapons. They've given up all their stockpiles of weapons. Oh, the UK as well. They have no more weapons in their stockpiles left to give Ukraine. And they're starting to freak out. And it's going to take many, many years to replenish these inventories. Well, we can add another country to the Russian demilitarization list, and that country is the Czech Republic. Czechia has exhausted its stockpile of arms in helping Ukraine to defend itself. Following the invasion of Russian forces, Czech Prime Minister Petr Fiala revealed on Thursday. Following a meeting with NATO Secretary General Jan Stoltenberg, who thanked the Czech government for both its military and humanitarian support for Ukraine, Fiala said that Czechia's resources will need to be topped up before it can provide any more help on the front line. Our stockpiles of Soviet-era weapon systems are dwindling, and we will need to be replenished, Fiala told reporters. So another country has been demilitarized because of their indefinite support of Ukraine. So that's the clown world. Oh boy. There is no reverse gear with these guys. Unfortunately, these clowns in Germany at the G7, there is no reverse gear. And one more final comment about the G7 before I sign off. People are now mocking the G7 more than they praise them. I mean, I'm looking at a lot of the alternative media, and all they're doing is mocking these leaders. And the G7 has really lost much of its luster, of its shine, hasn't it? It's really not that prestigious of a gathering anymore. I'm very curious to see if the rest of the world does put together a G8, as Turkey suggested, as Erdogan suggested. I bet you putting together a G8 and having a G8 meeting with China and India and Russia and Turkey and Iran and Indonesia, I bet you putting something together like that would completely drive the collective West crazy. I mean, Boris Johnson would be blowing a gasket if something like that was created. I would love to see a G8 meeting. If anything, just to mock the G7. Like, just to mock the G7, please put together a G8 meeting with all of those countries. Anyway, I'm going to sign off from Athens, Greece. Check out Alexander's channel. Check out the Duran's channel. Check out the Duran.locals.com and go to our shop, the drnshop.com, the duranshop.com, and pick up some merchandise, 10% off when you use the code GOODDAY. Take care.